Welcome to The Prize Inside, your favorite source for exploring the human potential through the stories of ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. These aren't just people exceeding physical limits. They're doing the impossible, and they aren't done yet. Are you ready to exceed your potential? Then join in now with your hosts, chiropractors Rochelle and Jeremy Myers and massage therapist Bunny.
All right, welcome everybody to The Prize Inside, where we learn about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today, I just wanted to start talking about the different bullet points of where I would like to go. Is like I explain kind of the book that I kind of written over time. So bear with me. Hopefully, this is a little longer. We just talk about a few different things and hopefully you enjoy it. So our first thing is our ads from our sponsors. So The Prize Inside is brought to you by MyPeak Direct, MYEPEAK Direct.com. MyPeak Direct is an online holistic store that holistic doctors have deemed the products exceptional. And as it keeps growing, we'll have more and more products in there. Ever have a difficult time knowing what the best products on the online market is? Maybe you heard a good suggestion, but you're not sure where to go to find the good high quality stuff. MyPeak is an online store that you'll have all these different holistic supplies that you can choose from. And the best part is the holistic doctors have recommended and vetted them. So if you would like, visit www.myepeakdirect.com and check it out for yourself. Also, these podcasts will be available on there as well. So if you want to direct download them there, that would be fantastic. Dr. Rachel Myers and Amy Segerman offer 4 components to support you as you begin your journey towards lifelong transformation, one healthy habit at a time. Your coach will be with you every step of the way. Studies showing that having a support system can help you get better results. It's why each client gets paired with a coach to guide them on the path to optimal health and well-being. Our coaches are there to empower and encourage you in real time. They know the journey you're about to begin because they themselves have been there. And I tell you what, I've been there with them, and about 40 pounds lighter and feeling good when I work it out. It's fantastic. So if you're interested, call 269-964-1441. Ask for Dr. Rachel or Amy to get started. Okay, so in our last little discussions on this one, we kind of switch over from the chiropractic principles, but we start going into the different aspects of how we can improve all things, right? So improve all things in health and healing. What does that journey look like? For me, one of my things is I'm a big student of You Can Change Your Genes by Dr. Bruce Lipton. The study of epigenetics is something we haven't even explored as much. We are starting to understand the science, but how do we apply that to us in real time? So this one, so the ones in the past, we've been all talking about the environment and how important that environment is. Now we're going to start creating our new environment. Okay, so this is the quote I want to start with, and this kind of represents the podcast today. So to collaborative team members, completing one another is more important than competing with one another. John Maxwell. So I'll say it again. To collaborative team members, completing one another is more important than competing with one another. Okay, so one of the things that we have to come to as an understanding, and this is where this podcast starts, is that we're not doing things correct. We have, it's in our healthcare system, it is really a sick care model. And the problem is, in my opinion, is one of the problems, is this thing, what I believe is called a coordination of knowledge. So we have these, it's kind of like this competitive framework where we're using multiple opposing viewpoints to get to the end result. So I'll give you an example. One chiropractic buddy of mine, we were talking about, these different health fairs. So sometimes you'll have a health fair and you're kind of set up to you have the employees go through and all the doctors, various doctors are there, right? So these doctors are there, set up their table, and they want you to come into their office, whether that be an eye doctor, dentist, chiropractor, massage, those kind of things. Well, a lot of times what occurs, and it's kind of after 20 years, I'm not very good at those, to be honest with you. I just, to try to talk somebody into it without me physically showing them is tough, because it's just not my world. I say, well, come in and I'll show you, and so others have done much better at those than I have. However, one of the things that he said that was stunning was, you have one chiropractor down the road saying, hey, your right hip's off. And then you come down here and you say, hey, your left shoulder's off, right? So you're trying to persuade this person to come into your office, to get adjusted because of the competition between those two. This has really hurt our health and healing in general, not the competition between the chiropractic part as much in the same holistic art or holistic healing, but it's been the competition of control of people's health in general. And so when we have that, it really starts dampering down on the ability of us to creatively become holistic and actually listen to our innate body. And what I mean by that is there is a massive disconnect, I would say, in how we have to approach everything we do, because we are constantly being pulled in different directions as a consumer, basically. As a health consumer, we're getting pulled in various different directions that doesn't allow us to be our true self. So, and that really starts stunting healing. So a good example was, and now it's much, much better than it used to be because of the concepts that are there, but you would have a medical sick care model that would say one thing. I'll give you an example. Actually, they had me do a presentation on this exact concept. So let's say you go into a medical doctor's office and your back went out. You picked up a fifth wheel trailer and you tried to move it, and that was stupid. And then so now you're off. Well, the medical doctor sees you, and their first intention is they need to help you somehow. So, but if you looked at it, they're booked out. Maybe they don't have the training into like how to, recalibrate that spine into the correct spot. But their training is in painkiller, muscle relaxer. They know the medical piece where you have the drugs that would help you at that time. And so this is a very good move when that's your one tool that you have, right? Coming from a holistic doctor, you're like, I can't believe you said that. I go, no, that's the tool they had to help that person. So they actually helped them. But the problem is the disconnect after. So the problem is like you say, okay, here's these medications. I'm going to send you home with them, and I'll see you in 2 months. See how it goes. Or I'll see you in 3 weeks. Well, that off alignment from that spine that's acute has now been masked for 3 weeks. And so it's kind of like taking your car in, your oil light's going, and now your oil, you can smell the smoke of your oil burning, your oil pan's burning off, and you go into the oil guy, and then he puts a piece of black tape over that oil light and says, okay, keep driving for another 3 weeks, see how we do, right? That is one of the major issues, because if you said, let's say you went to a place that doesn't have the oil change capability, right, as a car, and they had an oil, the oil light was, and you're like, oh my God, it's smoking. And if that place said, hey, you need to get an oil change, and then sent you down to the oil place and to get an oil change, then things would be much better, right? So that analogy is kind of dumb, but the idea was, in this presentation, I told them, did you know that if a medical doctor, after somebody has an acute low back or a headache, if they treated them with the medications they know, and then recommended a chiropractor, physical therapist, holistic thing to help that recalibration, they're 80% less likely to actually have to prescribe medication again. That is a massive stat. 80% of people would not have to have the second round of medications that really are only made or designed for that time frame anyway. So what did that bring to light? A lot of times it brought to light that we don't do things in a coordinated effort, and that's one of our problems. We saw this with, and this is where I'm going to go down a little rabbit hole, so I apologize. I try to not be too crazy on this kind of stuff, but we are living in the time of the pandemic. The pandemic really kind of depressed me in the beginning because of our lack of coordination. I was watching people that were, taking over, and there was just certain people talking. So we had these certain people that thought they knew what's best for all of us in almost a competitive way, and telling us our next steps, when I knew how many different holistic, nutritional, valuable things are out there to help combat this. We had, we did two things. We said social distance, wash your hands. Well, I knew that sugar was a bad thing. Why didn't you tell people stop doing the, what I call fake sugar, but the it's processed sugars, synthetic sugars. I knew that was a terrible thing for viruses. I knew vitamin D3 level needs to be normalized. I knew vitamin C and zinc would be a very good thing to have, in your cupboard. You should go out and get those kind of things. I knew about selenium not allowing the virus to do this thing. And I'm not, as of this taping, I'm not a herbalist yet, but I'm getting there. But before that, my nutrition knowledge was pretty good, but it wasn't exceptional, right? And so as I've gone to watch this in real time, it was just fascinating that there wasn't, they weren't asking anybody in the holistic anywhere, your Ayurvedic medicine, your Chinese medicine, there's so many pieces that you could actually link to this, your massage therapy, who knows, like the chiropractic. No one was asking, and it was very interesting to watch how people were trying to take over the narrative. And so that was really frustration. It showed us where we were at, but this wasn't just the United States, people. This was worldwide. In fact, as you looked at it, I think I saw it worse in other countries because people weren't open to, a lot of different alternative healing arts in many other countries. I always thought that was the opposite, but that's actually not the case. So as I was watching that, I almost got depressed because I was like, going, what can we bring to the table? I wanted to be in the fight as a chiropractor, as anybody. I wanted to be in the fight to help rid our planet of this horrible thing, but it was just not being done. So that's when I started to get the realization that we weren't really in our healthcare system. The reason it is what it is, the sick care model, is because we don't work as a team. We don't. And there's no real time to build that team essentially now. So what has to happen is more of what I call like a grassroots effort. This grassroots effort means that it's really up to the individual to create their own team. Anyone, if you're a patient or anything, you're gonna have to create your own team. And when you create that team, it's going to be the coolest thing. And you want cooperative pieces to that team so that you don't have this competition over the top. I love competition in sports and those kind of things. The problem is when we're looking at health, there's so many expertises out there that you can go from. So why not create a team framework around it versus, one thought versus another? That never gets you anywhere because they cancel each other out and you're at square zero, right? So if you have one guy that's negative, one guy that's positive, it's 0. But if both are positive, it's 2. That's a big difference. So a lot of times I will walk people through finding the medical doctor that is positive and wants this patient to go explore other things. Finding the acupuncturist that is not adamant against all things medicine. The chiropractor that's not adamant against all things medicine. We need all of those people. Like one presentation one time would, like they were saying, a lot of times people think of holistic and they think anti-medical. And that's absolutely not the case. I go, what planet would I want to live on that I didn't have a cardiologist? Are you joking? Or a medical doctor? You think, if I had a massive weird rash on my arm that I'm going to want to go to the chiropractor? Not necessarily. It might be a good place to get adjusted and see how you're a mate and line up everything and see if something happens with that rash. But you'd probably want to go get it checked out. Maybe they have the better expertise for sure in something like that, right? So these are all things that, as I think about it, and as you'll learn in this book, when that thought energy starts to accumulate, then I believe, I see it all the time where it starts actually happening. So even probably before it even brings up a thought in my brain anyway. But what I mean by that is, so this situation, this pandemic really showed its colors. Like we went back to essentially trying to run it like the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, when we knew we had 100 years of just a lot of innovation in that time frame. You had the ability of a hot shower, a heat that would take out the virus. Those type of things were fascinating. And so watching that happen and not having those teams, the chiropractic patients I had a team. We had a team. We always had worked that way. We never, like all the time. So I had more confident people than what the general public had, because they had one person that they don't put everything into. And if that person didn't have the answer, then what do you do then, right? So that was what occurs at that point, is the worst thing that we can do for our health, and that's fear. Because we had guidance from a television set and these news organizations that would get experts that probably haven't worked on people in 50 years, as their guide, plus their, let's say, their medical doctor that they haven't seen in 2 years. Those are the two people that were responsible for this one individual's health. Think about that. So if you don't like doctors, okay, so you never go in, and that's fine. You don't have to, but you have no team. So then you have no, experts to poke around at, those type of things. You don't have others that you can bounce off of. So what happens in a situation where there's this pandemic type virus? Well, then you go to your place of information. You go to the television. Well, the television wasn't being exactly non-fearful. They understand through artificial intelligence now that if they could scare you with titles and with those things, they actually keep you as a watcher of their TV, and that's what they're all driven by, is basically ratings. So these ratings give them their income. So why wouldn't you put a bunch of fear stuff on? I call it fear porn, but a bunch of fear things on to keep you watching so that you will continue down this path of fear because you're not confident in your other. And you're also beholden. A lot of times we're giving the control. That the television might be the worst. I'm telling you, turn it off. Stop watching it. It's done. They've proven they're not good for you. The fear that they have created within you then goes beyond and you stop living. So when you could have all these different access points in your local town. So I want to give you an example of this story of something fascinating that happened that none of us holistic people actually saw coming. So in, I want to say 2016, 2015, there was talks of it, and now that it's 2021, it's going really, really well. But back then, my veterans at a VA hospital or my active military vets did not at the time have chiropractic or any holistic type care in that was covered. They'd have to pay for it for free or for out of their pocket, those kind of things. The VA, the hospital, the Veterans Affairs Hospital that takes care of our retired military vets with injuries, those kind of things, they never had any access to chiropractic. Well, it also led to when you only have a certain amount of tools, then you're not having the access to everything. So a lot of times began a giant opioid crisis within most VAs. This opioid crisis was just getting bigger and bigger. Well, back in roughly about 2016, it really took over 2017, 2018, where they started introducing chiropractic and acupuncture, actually. Those two different modalities where the VA was, allowing veterans, injured vets, to go try these different things. Well, what was fascinating by 2020, they had seen such a marked improvement that I was listening to the president at the time, and they said that they had reduced opioid usage by 20% across the entire United States in all VA hospitals. That is incredible. Well, and a lot of times you saw a lot of happy vets. They had a thing where they were 92% approval rating. And that's fantastic. Like, what happened there was they started looking outside their work, created a team that now is giving better care because now these guys have options, right? So that was a pretty exciting thing that they've, of course, we look back and go, of course they should have had chiropractic. Oh my gosh, how could you not put these active military guys with backpacks and what we asked them to do? And then they should have chiropractic care, you would think, but that wasn't the case at the time because of the competition for the dollar. The competition for all those type of things, it was always overlooked. You didn't want to hand over this person to that person when you didn't understand you were losing people. And that's what people don't realize. When you don't create the team, if you want to overpower somebody, which is taught much in the healthcare world, if you want to overpower and take dominion over somebody's health, then eventually that person will seek out other things beyond you, right? So by changing the narrative of how our doctors see all other doctors and quit worrying about where the almighty dollar goes, and we just start to take care of these people at our peak level. So, like, I give this example because it's so true. I always look at everything as our human body. I think one day we will find out that our 30 trillion cells, 300 trillion cells, whatever we got, and that this cooperation that you see in the human body, I think eventually, someday in this world, we will see that as well. And once we understand that the world organism can cooperate instead of compete, you're going to see that in such a big way. Your liver cell does not compete against your kidney cell, right? They help each other. The holistic things I've learned is many times you'll see, let's say, a person with a heart condition, and all of us have seen that, where grandma has this hump back, or those kind of things. Well, that humping is interesting because the heart needs the calcium. So here's a good example. So how women would never have fewer heart attacks and heart issues. A lot of times in the holistic people I've learned from is they were able to more get readily accessible to the calcium. In men, they couldn't pull the calcium out of the bones as easily. So what was happening is like you saw grandma, or she would start hunching over. That hunching over was her heart leaching the calcium from the bone because the heart needed it, and it just cooperated and gave up the calcium because the heart and the brain needed that energy, needed that calcium to survive. And if the heart and the brain stop working, then the rest of the organs can't work. So you see this cooperation every day with your body. Even if you're feeling sick, you have these cooperative. There's a reason those are all happening in this perfect coordination. Why are they happening? Right? So that's one of the interesting parts of watching the body do this coordination. What if we created teams of ourselves that we had this coordination throughout? So I wanted to make sure, and now we have the ability to do so many different things on this team aspect that it's getting better and better. We're so much more connected. Some of my patients reach out all the time. Weekends, doesn't matter, because it's as simple as a text message, which, like for me, I can catch it at any time. If I'm busy doing something, I can read it, those kind of things. People don't realize the access that we have to this team. And so what I wanted to do in this part is I want to get a concept going for us that we start looking at what our team kind of looks like. So like I'm gonna start reading off some stuff, or start reading off some questions for you, so that you can start understanding how to build this team that I'm talking about. What if you had an alternative healthcare and general practice doctors? You had surgeons that you had in a little book. You had allergy experts, etc. What if they all worked together, right? So even going in for your first time, and they were all put into an action plan together. Now, so this is my worldview that I would love to see happen, like for everyone. But what if, instead of, one epidemiologist running an entire state, what if you had a team of everyone? Like, let's say, and I'm talking at the state level right now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You know how this goes with me in this thing. I'm a squirrel, so I wanted to put this in there. But imagine if at a state level, which I'm going to work on actually, is to say, okay, at each level, what if you had a representation from all holistic and all medical on this and one roundtable? How do you think your result would be when you'd have these various ones, instead of saying that this one is the right way and everything else is not? You see what I'm saying? So one of the problems that we have right now is this fight, this competition for the right answer. And many times that is just not going to happen. And this holistic, innate intelligence, this universal intelligence of our life, we have to have multiple paths of victory. And so we got to start looking at that. You needed to, like, what is the best, like as we were going through the pandemic? What if we had a chiropractor telling you the best nutrition you can have? You could have the physical therapist telling us the best movement patterns for a lung virus, like what to do that could help you. What if you had a music therapist that would tell you different music to listen to raise your vibration to help you not get sick? What if you had a surgeon that told us the best way to truly sterilize your house? What if you had the family practice doc that would say, okay, what is the best practices for your kids and everyone else? Wouldn't it have been awesome to see the round table and have the discussion and just have them trust us as humans to make the right decisions at that point? But when you go into this ultra competitive mode where you think your way is the way, that's really hard because it's not that way, and it'll never be that way. We're always on a journey, right? So maybe one day we could have that kind of discussion as far as like how our states could be. And that's one reason states and countries and all those, like maybe one day we will see that. Maybe we won't try to move people like cattle into different things, but give them the information. I tell people all the time, if I ran for office, I'd go by one logo, one motto: I know you're not stupid. And so I'm going to give you everything. The reason is because you're not stupid. You're searching out. If you're listening to this podcast, you're seeking knowledge so that you could move on in your life. And so those are the things that, as we go forward, you don't call it, they've even done it so well in the medical giant machine that some people will look right at me and say, I don't believe in any of that supplement crap, right? I'm like, okay. So it's sad to me because there's so many aspects of it. Just the simple sugar. This guy that said that to me, I said, hey, here's my list. This is what I would do with my patients in the beginning. Here's my list of supplements you should go out and get. The guy looks at me and he has a Monster drink in his hand and he's like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm just waiting for the pill to happen. I'm like, okay, so I can't change any. You got to be an individual still. So some are just going to do that. But anyway, but yeah, so that is where I want you to start to look. So I want you to create your own team. That is today's lesson, okay? The lesson is, let's look at creating your actual team. This is what I talked about before. You're going to hear me say it all the time, 1% improvement. So this week, I want you to write down the people that you use for your team. So it could be the herbalist down the road. It could be the organic farmer. It could be what aims for your health that helps you out. What if you have a personal trainer friend? Maybe start working with them. Maybe, who's your MD? Do you trust them? Are you just going because you have to? Do you have good conversation with them? I'm not asking you to go, and just take up all the have these constant questions, but who's your chiropractor? Who's your massage person? Who's your physical therapist? All of these people, think about that. It's not that far off, but you have to create the team. And unfortunately, we're not to the point where we're ever going to do that as all these professions intermingling, because we always think everybody thinks constant competition. So you have to make your own discernment. There's many times where, people see me on a regular basis, but won't tell their medical doctor because the medical doctor doesn't believe in the chiropractic portion. And to me, that's fine. It's unfortunate, but that's the world we're living in. And so we need to understand that. Sometimes you'll find a medical doctor that loves it, that they're doing that on a regular basis. So those are pieces that you have to make your own decision on. It's you get to interview them. That is one of my favorite things, is like interview them. They're not your judge and jury. You are. all these doctors, all these different people, they don't control your health, you do. And that you must take into consideration as we go. So, all right. So I think that is it this time. All right, cool. So that's it for this week. I appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully you get a little bit out of that, creating the team. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? So I believe in that strongly. I think if we start bringing that into every piece of our life, you'll see that as we go forward in this journey on the prize inside, that we're going to keep bringing that and showing how this team can really change everything for you. So with that, have a great day.
Don't think for a second that this episode has reached its full potential, because we have plenty more for you on myers-chiropractic.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast listening service so you don't miss a minute of real stories, real people, and real results. We look forward to exploring the human potential with you next time, right here on The Prize Inside.